What's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Red and Gold Standard podcast. My name is Zach Hernandez, and as always, I am joined by my co-host Matt Llewellyn and Mike Andrews. We are live here Sunday evening, Sunday night, depending on where you're tuning in from, and we will be recapping the 49ers 31-13 win over the Seattle Seahawks on Thanksgiving. It was beautiful, it was glorious, and we're going to get into all of it. Before I toss it over to my panel here, if you guys are tuning in on X, head over to youtube.com/49ers Hive and join from there. It is scrolling across the bottom of your screen. While you're there, hit like, hit subscribe, share your thoughts. We want to hear them. We want to read them. We want to share them. We can't see them on X. We're not ignoring you. Just go to YouTube, join from there. Now that I got that out of the way, Matt, how you doing tonight?
Zach, I'm doing pretty good, man. No 49ers football today, so we got to have a really cool day. Take my daughter to the zoo, have a bunch of fun there. It was a good day overall, man. No complaints. I would have liked to see the Bills beat the Eagles, but can't always get what you want. But I have no complaints, man.
Yeah, I guess the only good thing about that game is it went into overtime. So the 49ers are going to have a little advantage with a little bit of extra rest. Meanwhile, the Eagles are going to come off of like 100 defensive snaps or something that they played. Mike, how you doing tonight?
I am good, man. I got my little fix. Went live during the Eagles and Bills game and watched the officials just, take control of a game that they really didn't have to involve themselves in. But it is all good. There's a small part of me that wishes the Eagles never lost to the Jets. I understand how that would affect the standings and all that and us down the stretch. But I would love to give them their first loss of the season at this point. Like, if they're going to get these bounces and these calls like this, then just make them be undefeated so that way we can give them their first loss in the regular season at home. But it's all good. We still have a chance to do something special. They haven't lost at home in 2 seasons, so I'll be happy to go out there and dish out their first one.
That's right. That's right, man. I love it. I hope both of you guys had a fantastic Thanksgiving. Mike, I hope you had a happy birthday. You guys held down the fort on Thanksgiving, I believe, right? Early morning Thanksgiving. You guys did a show here for the previous show. So Appreciate you guys.
Early Thanksgiving morning for sure.
That's awesome. So we're back here. Hope everybody watching had a great, safe, plentiful Thanksgiving feast. And it ended with the 49ers absolutely spanking Seattle Seahawks 31-13. It was a little close for a second, but man, immediately right off the bat, the 49ers go right down the field and score 7 with a Christian McCaffrey run. Or excuse me, no, I think it was a Deebo Samuel first.
Yeah, Deebo got the first.
Deebo was the first touchdown, yeah.
That's right, yeah. So it was a 9-play, 71-yard drive for basically 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 59 seconds, with ended in a Deebo Samuel 2-yard touchdown run. And pretty much it continued that way most of the first half. Matt, I'm going to start with you. What were your thoughts on how the 49ers opened this game? What did you like? What didn't you like? Just, I'd love to know.
It was pretty clear on the first opening drive that it was going to be a heavy Deebo game. I kind of figured that it would be beforehand. I know that was my offensive player of the game prior to the game that when me and Mike were previewing. And it kind of turned out that way. They looked pretty efficient going down the field. And it was one of those things where once they scored, they kind of didn't look back. They were able to put their stamp on the game to come out and were very physical. A couple of good Brock Purdy passes, a couple of really good Christian McCaffrey runs, some chunk runs that we haven't seen out of McCaffrey in a few weeks. So that was good to see him get back on track. And once the 49ers established the tempo, it was pretty much all downhill from there for Seattle.
Yeah, agreed. It was good. It's funny seeing highlights of Christian McCaffrey run in Seattle. I can't tell if it's from this year or last year because they look so similar. He's busting off 20, 30-yard runs in the middle, both wearing the same jerseys. I think the only difference is that John Madden patch. Mike, what were your thoughts on the 49ers start to this game?
No, I absolutely loved it, man. I said something a while ago, and it was that the Niners seem to have like a handicap when Deebo's not on the field. And even if he's a distraction, it just changes the way the offense looks. And I am so happy that he is back. As long as he's back, the Niners aren't going to lose another game. Like, I sincerely feel that way. His presence out there just it does something. It dictates coverage way more than, I understand that, Deebo is replaceable now that McCaffrey's here and all that. I get that, and I don't disagree with that as far as what the production can be. However, the way defenses have to play the Niners is so different, and that was just evident throughout the whole first half, the start of the game and everything offensively. And then you see the defense go out there and get rearing. You know, Matt gave himself a pat on the back for his offensive player of the game. My defensive player of the game, Eric Armstead, had the exact type of game I thought that he was going to have out there, even racked up another sack. I mean, just a force out there. I said his slow get off was going to be beneficial, and sure enough, on one of his slowest snaps, he ended up getting a sack on it. You know, it's like a delay, and then boom, there he is right there in the middle. And I think I'm starting to think that he's even doing it on purpose. You know, like they snap the ball and the pass blocker drops back, and then he uses more momentum and force to like bear into the shoulder pads and the chest of this guy, and it gives him even more leverage and strength and power. So I like it, man. The team did exactly what we wanted them to do. It wasn't a perfect game by any stretch of the imagination. No, we're just talking about the first half right now, but the first half was damn near perfect.
Yeah, agreed. It was really, really fun to watch. So many years the 49ers went up into Seattle and just got their asses handed to them. So now it's like such a great feeling seeing them go up there on Thanksgiving, no less, and just absolutely hand it to the Seahawks. At halftime, it was like 24-3 or something like that. And of course, ended with the Seahawks fumbling that punt, and the 49ers were able to recover and get another field goal. And then the Seahawks missed a field goal going into half. So it was just really, really entertaining. I thought Brock played well. Debo played well, but man, we got to give some flowers to Charvarius Ward, because that man, he's played well almost every game he's played against DK Metcalf. I don't know if I've ever seen him shadow a receiver. And he said afterwards in the post-game kind of, they're all eating turkey on the Seahawks field. And he goes, yeah, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan both came up to me before the game and basically said, hey, we want you to shadow DK. We want you to follow him around. He was completely up for the task. I mean, DK had 3 catches for 34 yards.
Like that, yeah.
3 catches for 32 yards. And he had one of the best pass breakups I've ever seen, a deep pass along the left sideline for a touchdown, but Ward said absolutely not and broke that up right at the last second. So we've been very critical of him as he's had some boneheaded penalties and some boneheaded plays. Thursday night was not that. He looked absolutely great. It looked like he was worth every penny of that contract Thursday night. Sticking with the defense, Matt, what did you think of the defensive line? I believe they had 6 sacks or something crazy like that. What were your thoughts on them?
Yeah, I thought they played well overall. And just to touch on what you said about Charvarius Ward, Mike and I talked about it, that I thought that Ward was going to do much better against DK Metcalf. And I think the reason that they moved DK or Charvarius Ward around on DK Metcalf is because he's a much better matchup for Charvarius Ward than Tyler Lockett would have been. And I think that bore itself out with what he did. So hats off to Charvarius Ward for finding some success against DK Metcalf. Great pass breakups, was with him lockstep, and just looked really, really good overall. And that comes off of the defensive line too. So, you get Nick Bosa out there, and I got to tell you, since the bye week, Nick Bosa has looked like the reigning defensive player of the year. He has looked like an absolute animal out there. To the point that I think they said he had another 9 pressures on the quarterback. Not that pressures are everything or whatever, but he did have, he was in on a couple. I think he had 2 sacks in the game, if I'm not mistaken, 2 more. He was just a force out there, and that defensive line, like Mike touched on, Eric Armstead. It's pretty rare when you can have a game where you're looking at, Javon Hargrave playing well, Eric Armstead, Nick Bosa, and the one that you're talking, like Chase Young, was the odd man out. And it's just like, he didn't have a bad game. He just didn't touch the stat sheet that much. And when Chase Young is a least successful person on your defensive line, you got a really good defensive line. Hats off to those guys. I think Brock Purdy scored more points for the Seattle Seahawks than Geno Smith did, and that's saying a lot. So hats off to the defense. They played a hell of a game.
Yeah, unfortunately, Brock had that pick 6, which was tipped once or twice. I couldn't really get a good view of it at the line. I think the defensive lineman tipped it, and then it ended up being further behind McCaffrey. McCaffrey tipped it right into Jordan Brooks' lap. It is what it is. I thought it was really interesting to see that Tariq Woolen, the kind of standout corner for the Seattle Seahawks,
got benched. Yeah, he got benched.
So Brandon Ayuk was putting them in a blender, and then I believe the final straw was Juwan Jennings catching that 3rd and 7, about 2.5 yards shy of the marker, and just breaking the tackles. He spins 2 or 3 times and gets enough yardage. Like, it was absolutely wild to see. Can Ward do the same thing for AJ Brown next week? I hope so, man. I hope so. AJ Brown's a little bit of a different animal than DK Metcalf. Similar build. I was impressed by the defense. They basically gave up 6 points, 3 of which came from a long kickoff return, the opening kickoff return, and then they proceeded to get 1 yard the next 3 plays. So they were really, really impressive. The offense was great, and then there was that little bit of a lull in the third quarter where it became like, if the Seahawks score here, it's a 1-possession game. Jackson Smith and Jigba had that amazing one-headed catch on 3rd down. But fear not, Brock Purdy leads the offense down the field and has an absolute dot to Brandon Ayuk, like 30-something yards down the field in the middle of 4 defenders. Mike, when that play happened, what were your thoughts? What were you thinking? How are you feeling? Let me hear it.
Yeah, I was watching it, and something I put in one of the group chats with the Nothing But Niners guys was that I think I found what Brock Purdy's elite trait is. His layered throws. When he has to throw it over the guys in front of the receiver, but drop it inside, before the safety and all that, so that only our receivers can get it. Brock Purdy is doing that at a phenomenal clip. And it's just doesn't matter how far, doesn't matter the down and distance or anything on the pass. Like, he is out there and he is doing it consistently. I mean, it's just right over the guys, but it's dropping well enough where the safeties can't get involved in it. And I'm absolutely loving it. When I watched the throw, I saw the underneath guy and I was like, oh, he should get him. But then it was like, oh, nope, I don't need to get him. I got this guy right here, Brandon Ayuk. Boom, touchdown, and that's what you want to see. Like, that made my day. I was worried about Brock Purdy up to that point because the drive or two before that was when they showed him with something. No one knew what it was at the time, something on his elbow. And when they came out the following drive, that's when they showed Debo with the trick pass, the only pass attempt on the drive. And I was like, oh, my God, did he get hurt? Are they trying to cover it up? What's going on? And then he comes out and just basically goes crazy with this throw right here. I mean, what a pass. Look at the angle of the ball. Look at the, slant on that ball right there. Like, it's incredible how it drops. It's some video game type shit that he controls that pass. But he does that in short down and distances also, like across the middle of the field. So he has the touch that the Niners need to be successful. And I was in awe. And I sincerely appreciate it.
Same. Matt, I want to get your thoughts on the sleep of real quick. I just want to say on that touchdown, it is very annoying when your TV's like 2 seconds behind real time and you have alerts set for the 49ers Twitter account or X account because I'm posting all this stuff on X. Usually when people don't get the game, some people I know follow me for updates, but I get the alert on my phone, touchdown Brandon Ayuk, and I'm watching the play. I'm like, what the hell? So it's about to happen, but it's still very exciting and very fun.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah.
To just touch on the Brock Purdy elbow sleeve thing, I mean, it's something just to keep his arm warm. Let's be real. The dude had a major arm surgery not too long ago. And I'm not going to get into the hyperbole and be like, oh, this is from, his arm is fatigued, or, oh, he's still dealing with the injury. Let's go back to the Dallas game where Troy Aikman said, yeah, the arm strength is still an issue, or whatever the case may be. I watched that dude and it was an incomplete pass, but I watched him roll out to his right, throw off his right foot, 35 yards down the field on a rope to George Kittle. Now, George Kittle caught the pass. He was forced out. But, I mean, that was a dot, dude. And if you got questions about his arm strength after that, you're just not paying attention. You're purposefully being obtuse. At this point, I think the arm is healed. This is just more of a maintenance thing. This is one of the first cold weather games the 49ers have played. It was in the 40s when they were playing there. When he's on sideline, he's going to want to definitely, just keep that warm. Keep it warmed up. Keep it loose. One of the things that can happen after surgery is you end up with a little more stiffness in those joints than you normally would. And this is, to me, not a new injury thing. This is just maintenance.
And you called it right away. You were like, people are going to see this and immediately start speculating whether he heard it. And it's just,
and it took 2 minutes before that happened. So
yeah,
it's much ado about nothing, to be real. But all the usual suspects will float that stuff out on their X, their Twitter, to get their engagements and their clicks.
Just pure speculation for no reason at all. But all right, overall, Brock finished the game. Let's see, 21 of 30, 209 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, QBR of 62.1, and a passer rating of 86.7. Nothing like the 158.3 he had the prior week versus the Bucs, but it's a short week on the road. I'll take it. I'm not worried about that. Christian McCaffrey finished with 19 carries, 114 yards, averaged 6 yards a carry. 6 yards a carry. Longest of the day was 27 yards and 2 touchdowns. Elijah Mitchell had some promising carries, 7 carries for 39 yards as well. I was pleased with the running game as a whole. And then Deebo Samuel led the team in receiving, 7 receptions for 79 yards. Ayuk 2 for 50, including that touchdown. McCaffrey 525. Kittle only had 3 receptions for 19 yards. I thought he'd be a much bigger part of this game, but he wasn't. Mike, you're kind of smiling. What do you have something to add? Okay.
Sorry, my son just did this, and I was like, "What, did the dog fart?" And he's like, "Yeah." Sorry.
No, you're good. While I have you up, let me ask you. People are saying, look, the Eagles are proving they can win in any way, period. They find a way to win, except for apparently when they're playing Zach Wilson, but they do find ways to win other than that. What did this game tell you about the 49ers? Did it teach you anything at all, or is it more of what we already knew?
No, I just think the Niners are who we want them to be, who we expect them to be. It's just once they hit their rhythm, this is what the Niners are going to look like. And there's going to be lulls. Every drive isn't going to be perfect. Every drive isn't going to result in points. But the truth of the matter is the Niners are scoring 5 times a game. Now if you get a sprinkle in a couple of field goals and all that stuff, but they're scoring 5 out of 7 drives every game that they play when they're all out there. And that's just what we should expect going forward for this team. It's not a luck thing. This is who they are. How many times have you seen them score 31 points and then go to the podium and say, we're leaving a lot on the field. We're leaving a lot on the field. Like that's what it is, So we should be happy about that. I wasn't surprised by any stretch of the imagination, and I'm not sure that there's a defense out there that wants to play this team. With that said, though, I know we were talking about the Eagles. The Eagles and the Niners have scored the same exact amount of points this season. Now, I believe the Eagles have a couple of defensive scores, and the Niners have yet to do that. So ours are 100% caused by the offense and special teams, but nothing on the defensive side of the ball. We're still waiting for a pick 6 or a fumble, scoop and score. We haven't seen that yet this season. So
yeah. Some of the comments here. Nobody's talking about Ronnie Bell, Big Papa. Wishnowski's wobble punt that ended up in a drop and a fumble recovery. Shout out to Mitch. He has very quickly become, in my opinion, one of the best punters in the NFL. And people, including myself, were laughing at the Niners for that draft pick for the first couple of years. And his extension, he's looking like a literal weapon for them. Like the way he's able to get the angle of the ball, the way he's able to get it to flip and spin, kind of unpredictably. It's really, really impressive. And Matt, I'm gonna get to you because I know this is your kind of main, not your main, but one of the main areas of contention. Ray McCloud is still back there returning.
Stinks. He stinks. It's put Ronnie Bell back there or somebody, man. Like, I have never seen a dude that is more allergic to open space in my life. That dude just needs to be around other people. I don't know. Like, I hope he's got a big family, because dude alone at night, it's someone better check on him, welfare check or whatever. It's just sad. And it's what's really sad is that Mitch Wishnowski, 30% of Mitch Wishnowski's punts are down within the 10-yard line of the opposing team. That is an insane number. He only has 1 touchback this year. I mean, dude is balling out of his mind. And after some early hiccups, during that 3-game losing streak and a little bit of concern, Jake Moody's back to just making field goals, making kicks. Where's the area that the 49ers are hurting? it's that return game. That return game is just so bad. Not mediocre, not league average. It's bad. McLeod, I believe, had a fumble, right? He fumbled this week. I think that
Burks.
Warren Burks jumped on it. Didn't really hurt them in the end. I believe that was a scoring drive to Ayuk that they ended up with on that drive. But there's no juice. When teams punt the ball to the 49ers, they're not going to go very far. When they kick it to the 49ers, it's either going to be a touchback or they're going to get tackled at like the 18 because it's just not happening. No good. And then, the other part of special teams that wasn't that great, they gave up a big kick return on Seattle's, opening kickoff that they got. And then we lose George Odom for the season to a torn biceps. Special teams matters. And I think that it's really imperative for the 49ers to try to figure out what's going on. Obviously, what they're doing with Ray McLeod isn't working. It's Richie James 0.5. He's like almost a downgrade from Richie James. We brought him here because of the big playability he showed in Pittsburgh. He's shown absolutely none of that. It's an embarrassment.
Yep. Agreed. It's tough. And just to address throwback here, Ray McLeod doesn't seem fast, can't get past 25-yard line. There's so many times he takes out of the end zone and gets stopped at the 20. It's like, just leave it in the end zone.
Yeah.
Any thoughts, Mike?
No, I completely agree with that. He needs to start doing it. It's like to the point where, when Jimmy Garoppolo would throw something deep, you kind of hold your breath.
Yep.
When I see Ray bringing it out of the end zone, and like it's not even just the end zone. Like they have this new rule: if you like fair catch it inside like the 20 this year, you get it to the 25. Like, what are you doing? Just fair catch it. Like stop wasting yards, dude. Like it's some new rule that they implemented this year. I don't know if you guys heard about what it is. It doesn't have to be in the end zone. You can fair catch it to 3, 4, 5 yard line, and they give it to you up there at the 25. Stop wasting yards, dude. You're making it harder than it has to be. And he does it consistently, man. It's like I hate watching it. He's the person that I hold my breath for and say, oh God, let's see what happens. He's frail, he's fragile. But as far as the rest of special teams, I know we talked about losing Odom, but it's like we also got someone back who's really good in special teams in Womack. Womack went out there and made his presence felt almost immediately. So I was happy to see him come back out there as well. Would have been better with him plus Odom, but we got to deal with what we got to deal with. And then the kicker, I don't know what his stats finished as. I know he didn't miss anything, but he was over 85% going into this game. So we're right back on pace where we were with Robbie Gould. Like the Niners did a good job drafting him.
Yeah, he was 1 for 1 from 32, and he made all 4 extra points. So 5 for 5
and
on the day.
By the way, that's not a skill to be just scoffed at or overlooked. Making your extra points is not a given anymore based off of where they put them. And we've seen plenty of teams. I believe the Lions missed an extra point in their game. There were a couple others. There were multiple missed extra points on that Thanksgiving day, let alone, throughout the NFL during the season. Making your extra points is very important.
Yep.
Yeah, good kickers go a long way. We just saw the Eagles win a game that if the Bills made their kicks,
they missed 2.
Go to overtime. Yeah, they missed 2.
Missed
6
2
points
kicks
out there before going into overtime.
Yep.
So,
meanwhile, the Eagles kicker made a 59-yarder in the rain to send it to overtime, but Tyler Bass misses like a 39 and a 44 or something like that. Like, it matters as much as we hate it. It matters. I wanted to touch on the 49ers. How do I say this? Because people want to knock on them for not being able to survive close games, right? Play these tough games and really edge a win out. But wouldn't you argue at some point it was a close game and the 49ers just ran away with it? Like, it's not like they get a 30-point lead to start the game and they just have to hold on to it. Like, they all start 0-0 and the 49ers build a small lead and maybe it becomes, back and forth for a little bit. And then in the end, they run away with it. In this game, like I said earlier, it was 24-10 at one point, and the Seahawks were driving very easily. Could have been 17-24. 1 possession game midway through the third quarter, plenty of time, but the 49ers didn't allow that. And then on the flip side, they went and scored and made it 31-10 13 or something like that. 31-10. I forget what the score finally was, 31-13, but it was impressive. And I've said this before, Mike. People want to knock Purdy for not being able to come back, but it's not like he's a closer. Like, it's not baseball where he comes in the 8th inning and just holds on to the win. He helps the 49ers get to this big blowout victory. I believe they're 1 or 2 in point differential on the year. They're like 70 points ahead of the Eagles I saw in point differential. Do you have any thoughts on that and why that continues to be a knock on specifically Purdy and the 49ers as a whole?
Yeah, it's just people looking for a flaw in Purdy. I mean, that's what we are. That's where we are. It's like, all right, he's Mr. Irrelevant. Why? What can he do well? And it's just the one area of a game. And again, it's also selective memory, because that Raiders game was a shootout all the way to the end, went to overtime. You know what I mean? Like I said, if we make that kick in Cleveland, they say, oh, he can lead a game-winning drive. You know what I mean? It's little stuff like that that continues to happen over and over, and people hold it against Brock Purdy. Oh, we haven't seen if he can do it. I don't want to see if he can do it. Let's go out there and get these 3-score leads and hold on to him. Like, who gives a shit if he can't do it? Like, he never needs to do it if that's the case. I don't want to see it, So, like, let's just go out there and win games the way that we win games. You want to keep it close just so you guys can say, oh, we can check that box now? Like, no. Let's go out there and blow these clowns out, whoever our opponents are. Let's keep going out there, beating up multiple scores, and do what we do. Score before halftime, get the ball back, score again, put us up by 2 scores, and stay that way for the rest of the game. I'm completely okay with that.
Yeah. Agreed 100%. This is just their style of play. And I don't understand why that's really needed from a quarterback. Like, I totally get it, right? Like, you want to see how you react in that situation, but he's playing well for most of the game. And I broke it down earlier on X. It was yesterday, I think. Like, even in the 3 losses, you can't say he was like the main reason why they lost. Yes, the interceptions came at a really, really bad time, but he was playing really well up until that. People forget the Browns are as good of a defense we've probably seen in the last like 5 years. He was without 2 people, and then Minnesota was arguably one of his better games of the season, and then he got concussed. And then Cincinnati, who was playing extremely well, unfortunately had the interceptions. But I don't know. People just like to put it all on Purdy. And I pulled up the stat from Lombardi, the point differentials on the season. This is after the Eagles game tonight. Eagles are at plus 64, while the 49ers are at plus 140. So the Eagles have won games, but the 49ers are winning games in a much different fashion. They're not as close. So it really is impressive to see what they're able to do with Brock Purdy, younger quarterback still coming in and getting used to things. Matt, let's get back to the running game. Christian McCaffrey, like I said, averaged 6 yards a pop. We hadn't seen that kind of efficiency from him in a couple of weeks, maybe. Did that surprise you at all? Or were you expecting that against the Seahawks defense?
I thought he was about due. I thought that McCaffrey was due for one of those games, and you could see it right off the bat that he was going to get those chunk yard plays with those runs between the tackles. And it's something that in Carolina, he was more of an edge-to-edge player, but it seems here like he likes to run between the tackles. And there were a couple runs that he had where, I mean, it was a sliver. You couldn't even call it a hole. It was just maybe a pinprick of daylight, and he would find his way through there. And he just runs tough. He's a lot tougher than I thought he was coming from Carolina, and he just does a fantastic job of taking what the defense gives him. He's very good at subtle changes of direction where it's not an overt Barry Sanders like hop juke, this, and that. But what he does is he'll change his foot pattern and shift his weight just enough that the defender has to turn around, whether that's he's taking an angle and then has to turn the other way, or it halts his momentum and allows Christian McCaffrey to get, a couple extra yards through a tackle. Doesn't seem like defenses are getting clean hits on him. And with a healthy Trent Williams, I'm definitely not surprised that Christian McCaffrey had the day that he did. He was definitely due, and he remains one of the most valuable 49ers that they have, to be honest.
Yep. Agreed. I'm extremely impressed. I guess I didn't really think of him as a really 3-down back, but he's shown here he has the ability to be a 3-down back. Like, he's played an insane amount of snaps. He has like almost a 200-yard lead in rushing yards over the next running back in the NFL. He's been a hell of an acquisition for the 49ers, and that trade has definitely paid off. I want to address this from David. Mike Kyle's play calling late in games when we are behind be an issue. He hasn't won one game in the fourth trailing. I think it's because he attacks the middle of the field so much, gets easy to defend. I don't think that's true. He hasn't won one game in the fourth trailing. Like Matt and Mike both said, that Raiders game they were trailing in the fourth just a year ago, I'm pretty sure. I think it's like 10 or less or something like that where he's got that stat. But broken down, most coaches aren't winning a game down in the fourth quarter. I think Bill Belichick's like 3-30 something, or Sean McVay's won like once or twice. Like it's not that crazy of a stat. I don't think it's too problematic for Kyle when he is in these situations. The 49ers are down late, but it definitely could be something to come back to bite. I don't know. Do you guys have different opinions on this?
I just think that it's a fallacy to think that these come from behind wins happen all that often. For every come from behind win that there are 5 more that don't end up doing it. And I think if you actually broke it down, most coaches, when trailing by any appreciable amount in the fourth quarter, probably have a losing record. That's the whole point, right? NFL teams just aren't coughing up leads left and right as much as we'd like to think. There are back and forth games for sure, but as a general rule, if you're down by more than one score in the fourth quarter, you're probably losing that game. Yeah. So I don't know, man. I think most teams are better when they're on top. That's how it goes. You play looser, you got the lead, this, that. Much ado about nothing for me, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it's much easier to catch a team off guard if you have a lead in the fourth quarter where they're expecting you to just run time off the clock and get out of there. Then you could take a shot, and it's like, oh, you just blew this game open. That's the dagger. That was what happened with the Ayuk play. We were up. Had we not converted and they scored, it's a one-score game, right? But then, boom, we hit them because they're expecting us to take the shorter check downs and everything. They're defending the underneath stuff more. Ayuk ekes into the secondary, and then, boom, it's a touchdown. Now it's a 3-score game. No one's even looking at, oh, well, what's going to happen now? It's like it's over at that point. So that's how it is in the NFL in general, like Matt said. It's not there's no coach that's like, oh, when he's trailing in the fourth quarter, he wins 90% of those games. That doesn't exist. It's not a thing. So.
Definitely not. Niners eating turkey in the midfield may have restored karma in the universe. All has been made right, and it's the Niners' year now. Mike, I'm going to ask you, this was the first game the 49ers played without all-pro safety Talanoa Hufanga. Ji'Ayir Brown came in and, in my opinion, played a pretty good game. What were your thoughts on the rookie's performance?
Talahu?
Oh,
That's all I got for you guys. I didn't pull my hair. What is he doing? One time. And while Huff was in there as a starter, I said that plenty of times in games. I didn't say it one time. It all comes down to the week of preparation and how, if he can get ready, knowing that you're going to be the starter and understanding what your assignments are. I won't speak for everybody. I expected him to be better than what he was. And so it worked out that way. So.
Nice. I like it. I like it a lot. He was impressive. And while we're giving flowers out, I think Steve Wilkes deserves a round of applause as well, because he has been, after getting questioned, basically on the hot seat, made to move down onto the field from where he's comfortable in the booth. I believe I saw the 49ers moved into the number 1 overall defense again today. Definitely scoring defense. Like, they are not giving up much. So it's really impressive what Steve Wilkes has been able to do. And I think Ji'Ayir Brown's success is kind of a testament to what Wilkes is doing. The scheme is so healthy and kind of working so well that you can swap out a piece like Hufanga for Brown, and it doesn't really miss a beat. Now, hopefully I'm not eating my words come a couple of weeks, but he played well. He played very well Thursday night. Matt, I'm going to go back to the offensive line here. We thought perhaps Feliciano was an upgrade, and it didn't really look like that Thursday night. I had the pressures here. Trent gave up 1, Aaron Banks 2, Brendel 1, and then Feliciano 4, and McKivitz 3. So the right side of the line is still kind of the problematic side. Is that concerning to you at all? Is it what you kind of expected? What did you think?
It continues to be a concern, and the fact that Brock Purdy is playing as well as he is, given that, is something to behold, I think. It's, it's going to become a problem as these teams get better, as we go to the playoffs, as we go deep into the playoffs. Hopefully, we had this issue last year, obviously, against Philadelphia, where Brock Purdy ends up getting injured because of that right side of that offensive line that just got completely annihilated. And it's, again, you get what you pay for. And when you put pennies into the offensive line, you can't expect dollar results. And it's, pass blocking wise, they're in the bottom third of the league. I think that showed in this game. And to me, Frank Clark didn't play. Who's Seattle's elite pass rusher? And you still have Brock Purdy having to move around, having to get flushed out of the pocket. Jaron Reed did a pretty good job, and he's a good player. But overall, it should have been a night without Frank Clark that the 49ers could actually give Brock Purdy some time and let him be back there and make some plays and pick apart the defense. It seemed like he was, running around a little bit for his life. Brock Purdy's escapability covers up a lot of their warts, but you can't always rely on that, and that could get them into trouble down the line.
Yeah. And I think that's where my biggest gripe this offseason was with Kyle Shanahan. How did last year end with your quarterback's arm getting blown up and you don't spend a single pick in the draft trying to protect him, drafting an offensive lineman? Like, I get it. You drafted a couple guys within the last couple of years. You want to see pan out. But you would think if they had the talent, they would have already separated themselves by now. I'm very upset that Kyle hasn't. And it's like you said, Matt, it's like going to the dollar store trying to find premium, groceries. It's like you're not going to find a filet mignon at the Dollar Tree. Like, it's just not going to happen. So maybe you do need to,
or if you find something that you think is labeled filet mignon, it's definitely not.
It's raccoon meat.
You could fool yourself, right? All the packaging says filet mignon, but as soon as you put that in your mouth, you already know, man.
It sounds like Mike McGlinchey. Mike, what did you think of the offensive line? Is it concerning to you moving forward?
I'm gonna say something that's probably a little controversial here. I'm really not concerned about it. So if you are the opposing team, are you gonna send your best pass rushers against Trent Williams and Aaron Banks? Or are you going to send them against the right side? That's supposed to be the weaker side of the offensive line, right? I get it. And, the reason why left tackles are paid more is because they protect the blind side. Like, Brock is supposed to be able to see and feel the pressure from his right side because he's right-handed. That's the way that he faces when he's dropping back. So, I mean, it's kind of how things are supposed to be. We're not doing anything that's like unknown or that's shocking to anybody. The right side of offensive lines are supposed to be the weaker side of the offensive line. That's just the way it works in the NFL unless you have a left-handed quarterback. I would love to know what the pressures are for the Miami Dolphins. I know that they have Tua and he's left-handed, right? But, I mean, you want to come after the quarterback on his blind side, right? And that's why they pay the left side more money. So we're doing exactly what should be expected. That right side is going to be more of a liability than the right side, and that's natural. We just got to continue to work with it. That's all.
Yeah. Rome 33 says, bro, the play he got hurt on Purdy was because we had a backup tight end blocking Reddick. Well, chipping happens all the time. It's not that unheard of. Go ahead, Matt.
Sure, and also in this offense, the offensive line calls the protections.
Yeah.
So, when you have the Eagles zero blitzing, then you need to kind of pick that up and, let Brock Purdy know like where the hot is. But, be that as it may. What's that?
I wish people saw that whole play. Like,
right.
if Brock Purdy throws that pass where he was throwing, Ayuk was wide open. Yep. Like, it's a touchdown and no one's having that conversation about the protection or anything like that. Like, you let free rushers go sometimes when you're doing a screen in the opposite direction or over the head of the people that are coming in as the free rushers and all. You let the numbers come in from that side, and that's kind of what the Niners were going for on that play. It just didn't, they got there just a beat sooner than what they thought. It was actually during the throwing motion, and people even critique Brock for it, like, why'd you pump instead of just go ahead and releasing the ball when you were supposed to? So yeah, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't.
It was also a play action play. So
Right.
if Hassan Reddick bites on the play action at all, we're not talking about this either.
Exactly.
It is what it is. I mean, that's old shit.
Yep.
I do disagree with you though. I think McKivitz is a huge issue, and every week that I watch that dude.
No. I'm not
I
saying
know
he's
that
good. He's bad.
I know that you're not concerned overall about the line. My thing is like, there's degrees, right? Yes, the left side should be better than the right, but this seems wholly unbalanced. And when you have probably the greatest left tackle to ever play the game in Trent Williams on that one side, and then you have absolute Colt McKivitz dog shit on the other side, that's a dichotomy. If you had league average at right tackle, we would not be talking about the offensive line the way that we are. But because Colt McKivitz is below replacement level, we have to have this conversation because each and every week he's giving up multiple pressures per game. And yes, Brock Purdy can see that side, but it's like, do you want him to have to reestablish his base, step up and throw somewhere, or do you want him to deliver the ball on time? I made a comparison that Brock Purdy to me is like early San Diego Chargers Drew Brees at this point in his career, right? He does not have elite level arm strength in the terms of he can just rocket a throw from off platform, 50 yards. He's not going to have that thing like Justin Herbert can do, right? The Patrick Mahomes, I can sling it sideways across my body. It's going to get there on a line. What Purdy does have is has elite level processing. He can get the ball to where it goes. He's got very good accuracy, but he needs to be able to establish his base and step into those throws. If your offensive line is giving up pressure before those routes can develop or before that you can make that anticipation throw, or as JT O'Sullivan says, those capital A anticipation throws, that becomes a problem. And then you see like against Hassan Reddick and the Eagles where he does pump that ball rather than let it fly. Or even earlier this year with that great touchdown pass to George Kittle on that fade route. He had to pump in a muddy pocket before he could throw that ball and then still couldn't even follow through. Those are things that I think become a problem when you have that offensive line that's just so below replacement level on that right side.
Yeah. We're trying to stick to the Seahawks game, but I do want to address this from David Rooks. Do you think Brock will be a little skittish for this game because it's a team that injured him? Absolutely not. This dude is cold-blooded. I think he had been waiting. He probably circled this game on the schedule when it came out. He's been waiting to go back. I'm sure he's thrilled it's in Philly. He wants the opportunity to play this team because, again, just listening to that press conference after the game, you could tell how just, like, crushed he was, that he feels like he let the rest of the team down. And that was what he was saying. The vets around me, they've been, so close each time. This is my first time almost getting there, but they've almost gotten there so many times. And then it got broken up because of me and my injury. So I think he feels like something was taken from the team and it was because of him. So I think he's 100% ready for this opportunity. I don't know if you guys have.
Same. I think the only anxiety he has is actually being anxious to play the game. Yeah. I don't think he's nervous about this at all. He's going to be amped up for it. That's the type of competitor that he is. He's going to want to go out there and prove like, hey, the only reason the Eagles got to the Super Bowl last year is because I got hurt. He wants to show them this is what time it would have been had I not gotten injured, and you're going to find out. So hopefully they can go out and take care of business.
And what an MVP candidate looks like. Go ahead, Mike.
He might be more anxious than nervous for this game. I could see him starting rough, like a couple of inaccurate throws because he's antsy to prove it versus like afraid of what that Eagles defensive line is gonna be coming with. You know what I mean? So I could see him having a bad opening drive of it and like they talk, hey, settle down, like we're here. You know what I mean? Like you didn't like you can only do this one play at a time type of thing. And then once he settles down, Brock will be back in his true form.
David Yang, I think the game plan will be run the ball, get the ball out quick. That'll negate their pass rush. Their strength is that front four. The Bills were having success running through them today. The Chiefs had success running through them. So they're not – let's get one thing clear. They're not the defense they were last year. So –
No, they're not. And honestly, dude, they're one of the I have never seen a 10-1 team that was like this suspect.
It's like the Vikings from last year.
Exactly. Their record in one-score games is, I mean, you put up the stat earlier. I know we can talk about it, but it's their point differential is 64, right? Plus 64. That's 11 games. That's like 5 points a game that they're, they finish up +5 or whatever. 49ers differential plus 140. That's a huge difference. So they're winning a lot of these close games where you look at it and you go, dude, if one or two things is different, if a call here or there, they are the most house of cards 10-1 team that I've ever seen in my life. And, I think it would be fitting if the 49ers go into Philly and humble them next week.
When is the last time you heard of the Bills having a good run game? Like, that tells you all I need to know. Like,
when Niners Thurman Thomas was playing,
right? Like, it's nuts. Like, I was watching the end of that game, and I'm like, look at the success that Cooks is having on the ground. And then they switched to Murray, and like Murray has done absolutely nothing for the Bills. Like, I remember him getting 3 goal line carries and them settling for a field goal, right? And it's like, dude, what are you doing? So it's like, and the fact that even he was getting some off down the stretch is like, oh my God, we're gonna have a field day. We're gonna have an absolute field day with this team on the ground.
Yep.
So I'm not worried at all. The Niners are gonna be fine.
On top of that, they were struggling to block Buffalo's defensive line. The 49ers defensive line is like 2.5 Buffalo defensive line, if that's how we're grading them. So if they were struggling versus that, and I know Lane Johnson was out, hopefully he's ready next week. I don't want to hear any excuses come from Eagles fans. Lane Johnson, I think I saw Fletcher Cox left the game, didn't come back. Jalen Carter got hurt, but I think he finished the game. So we'll see. We'll really see who's healthy. I'm hoping everybody is healthy that's not on IR. I know they're already going to be without Goddard. Did you guys see Adam Schefter get the pre-excuses out about how the Eagles are going to be, coming off a scheduled disadvantage, and the Niners
I
have
saw
a
that
10-day gap, and after that, then the Seahawks have a 10-day gap, and yada yada yada. Bro, how many teams
the 49ers are down the most rest days in the NFL?
Yes,
they're like minus 20 rest days or something like that. It's wild.
Yeah,
so
it's insane.
And it's interesting. Like, are you factoring in that we have a day of travel included in this? Like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, I thought that this was as close to as fair as it was going to get because of the Thanksgiving day. But then, like I said, we have to sacrifice the travel day and all that stuff. So, and then the time difference, like, stop it. Just save it, dude.
Yeah. I mean, their interdivision travel is pathetic in terms of Dallas is the furthest you have to go, but like DC and New Jersey, like those are, I mean, quick. Mike, you live in the greater Philadelphia area, or you live in New Jersey now?
No.
Philadelphia. Yeah, it's, I mean, even by driving, I think Philly to New York is like 90 minutes to 2 hours, depending on traffic.
Exactly.
A flight is going to take you 40 minutes, maybe. So you talk about, you want to talk about the Eagles within their division. They're not even traveling that far. They're hopping a little commuter flight to get to Washington or New York. And you talk about the 49ers have to, they're centrally located in California, but they got to fly down to Arizona. That's a couple hour flight. Down to Los Angeles. That's a couple hour flight. Up to Seattle. That's like 3-4 hours. And then every time they go, I mean, how many East Coast games the 49ers played? At Cleveland, at Minnesota, right? They're going to be at Philadelphia. The built-in excuse. It's just, you can see the script, right? You can see the page. Yep. You can hear the page turning in the background of the NFL script. Like, oh, let's give the Eagles an excuse just in case. Mm-hmm. It's ridiculous.
On top
between
of
that and the continued hate on Brock Purdy from all of the national media heads, it's just like, come on, guys.
Yeah. On top of that, they end the season with Giants, Cardinals, and at Giants. Like, are you kidding me?
Just take 3 dubs.
Yeah.
Add it to what they got, and let's see what we can do. We need to finish out all the way, and we need them to lose to the Cowboys if we're being completely honest. Yeah. So.
Eric Wallace says, good evening, all. Hey, Mike, to the other two in the chat, congratulations to you all for beating my Hawks. Thanks for tuning in, Eric.
He came on the show I did earlier today. He's a Seahawks fan.
Respect.
He came in and gave nothing but flowers.
Yep. Respect. I mean, it is 4 straight for the 49ers against the Seahawks. 4 straight for Brock Purdy. He is yet to lose to the Seattle Seahawks. I think it's just, there were those years where the 49ers just kept losing to the Seahawks. I think that the rivalry has flipped a little bit, and it's the 49ers' turn right now. I don't know how he feels necessarily, but to me, watching this game, it's pretty clear that Geno Smith is exactly who I've been saying he was. And all of you people that were fooled by him, shame on you. John Schneider of the Seahawks, shame on you. You paid this man a bunch of money that he didn't deserve because he had a half a good season and lived off the back of that. But you could see in the second half of even last year that the bloom was off the rose and he was getting worse and worse and worse as time went on. And it's just continued this season. He looks like Geno Smith. And I don't know why people are surprised by that, but he was never going to be this franchise guy that they were thinking he was. Okay. And it didn't matter. I mean, could you imagine how bad this game would have looked if Drew Lock would have played? I mean, Geno Smith led the Seahawks, the vaunted Seahawks, to 6 points. Again, as I said earlier, Brock Purdy gave the Seahawks more points than Geno Smith did. So it's Big Brother's turn. It's the 49ers' turn. And that blip in the radar where the Seahawks were better, it's done. Yeah. So I respect Seahawks fans. I know it's a tough time. We lived through the 2000s. We know what tough times are going to look like. I think it's going to be tough times for Seattle. They're too good to get a premium quarterback in the draft. And, they're not good enough with Geno Smith to be able to win everything. They're kind of in no man's land right now, unfortunately for them.
Which is why they should have used one of the picks or parlayed the picks they got from the Russell Wilson trade to get a quarterback. Like, I thought for sure they were going to get Levis. I thought for sure they were going to get, I don't know, any of the quarterbacks in the past couple drafts. Instead, they take a wide receiver. Instead, they, it's like, oh, okay. Like, you really are. I thought, okay, you give Geno the contract, but you should also have drafted a quarterback and allow him to develop underneath Geno. Maybe not as much pressure for him to produce right away, but they made
Seattle's history with first-round draft picks is weird, though. You know what I mean? Like, they either don't draft well, see Rashad Penny, or they do stuff like trade multiple first-round picks for an in-the-box safety like Jamal Adams, who doesn't do anything. Like, what does he do? I remember when Jamal Adams came out and he was with the Jets, and everybody was like, dang, man, this guy is the second coming. He's like the best safety in the league, this and this and that. Unless the 49ers are playing the Seahawks, I never hear Jamal Adams' name. Like, I just don't hear it around the league. He's not talked about. Nobody cares. And they wasted two. Everybody who's like, oh, the 49ers, they blew that Trey Lance thing. They should be in trouble, right? They swapped picks and then gave them 2 more firsts for that. That's 2 firsts that are wasted. All I got to do is look up north and be like, man, they traded 2 first-round picks for Jamal Adams.
I mean, the flip side is, and this is a very, very thin, if you want to look at silver lining, like, he led their team in sacks when he got there. I mean, if that's what you want.
That's just telling me their defensive line is dog shit. Like, right. That's all that's telling me, man.
Exactly.
And that year he had 6 sacks or something like that. Yeah. He led the team with 6 sacks. That's pathetic.
Yeah. Throwback says DeMeco Ryans deserves his quarterback, and he found CJ Stroud. So happy for him. It is nice to see that play out the way it should. Cough, the way it should have here in San Francisco, but it didn't. The 49ers have their guy. There's no hard feelings at all. I think the 49ers are very happy with how things have played out. But yeah, kudos to DeMeco, because that's really cool to see.
You know who's not happy with how things have played out? David Tepper. Did you see him drop F-bombs today?
Yeah. Well, okay.
1-10.
It's a 7-point game, 4th and 4, and you throw a screen pass 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Even Bryce Young just put his head down and shame. Frank Reich, what are you doing?
Frank Reich's going to get fired. Unfortunately, that's what it's looking like, because he has not done a good job there.
All right. Final thoughts on the Seattle 49ers Seahawks game before we get into our chat pack. Final thoughts, anyone? Mike, Matt? Are there anything we didn't talk about that you wanted to talk about?
No, I mean, we're going to see Seattle again in 2 weeks. The one thing is the shoe's going to kind of be on the other foot. The 49ers get to go into Philadelphia with a rest advantage, but Seattle's actually playing 2 Thursday night games in a row. So they're playing Thursday night this week. They're going to have 10 days to prepare for the 49ers, and we'll see what happens. I think it'll be, a similar game, probably a little closer, just due to the nature of the fact that they're going to have extra rest, but it's definitely something to watch out for. And we're not going to see those built-in media excuses from Adam Schefter, like, keep in mind that the Seahawks played on Thursday and blah, blah, blah. Got to take care of business. I'd like the 49ers to finish 6-0 in the division. That'll help them immensely. We'll see what happens. But Seattle just doesn't concern me overall. It's just the extra rest that would pose a problem, in my opinion.
Yeah. And this game was another reminder of why you don't just go based off of whatever PFF says. The fact that Ambry Thomas was rated like the highest defensive player and Ward didn't even make the top 5 tells me everything I need to know about their rating and scoring system. I mean, Ward played completely out of his mind. There were a lot of guys that were good. I mean, the corners in general were really good for the Niners. Let me just go ahead and be clear with what I'm saying. It's not meant to be a shot at Ambry Thomas, but I understand he had the interception, but he did not have a better game than Charvarius Ward did by any stretch of the imagination. And then for Ward to get dinged up, come back in there and finish strong the way that he did and all that. They didn't talk about the defensive line. I mean, the Niners defense really turned the page. And by the way, Wilkes is still doing things that make you scratch your head, dropping back Hargrave in coverage. I was going crazy when I saw Armstead in coverage a couple of weeks ago. Both plays, which resulted in sacks, by the way. But it's like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Like, that's not what these defensive linemen were brought in for. However, he still does things, and it's just to cause more confusion to the opposing quarterbacks. And if it's working, then damn, if it makes him hesitate for a second and someone else can get home to the quarterback or, force an errant throw, then by all means go ahead and do it. But Wilkes is, I think, coming into his own. I think he's getting some heat and pressure off of his back. Unfortunately, people are going to say, oh, it's because he's down on the field now, which I still don't think that's why the team looks better. But I think Chase Young has a lot to do with it. But the Niners are definitely trending in the right direction. And like I said, there's still a lot left to be desired. So there's a lot of meat on the bone still.
PFF is a little bit like when they, when you're looking at the PFF algorithm or whatever, and you ask somebody that works for PFF, like, how do you guys calculate that? And they go, it's the algorithm. And it's like, well, what's the algorithm? And they go, proprietary. It reminds me of when you go to KFC and they talk about the 11 herbs and spices. And you're like, which 11 herbs and spices are you using? They're like, we can't tell you that shit. So you're just going to have to wait for somebody who worked for PFF that gets super jaded to tell you all the bullshit that they feed into their computer to get some of these numbers. Because I'm telling you, some of the stuff that they come up with is just absolutely baffling. So I'm with you on that one, Mike. There's no way that Ambry Thomas should have been ranked higher than Charvarius Ward. I mean, just on game impact alone, it was easily Charvarius Ward. I don't know, man. PFF to me, the more that they go on, the more I'm like, this is kind of the snake oil for advanced statistics to me.
Yeah. What they decide to classify as a turnover worthy play and what they don't decide, it really is weird. And I feel like each statistic needs to come with a link to each play they're referring to.
Doesn't it feel like when they say turnover worthy play, it's punishing quarterbacks who are making like high level difficult throws?
Yeah.
Because by nature, those throws, if they're off by a little bit, could be turnovers.
Right. And the reason it's a high level throw is because of the degree of difficulty. So
right, exactly.
You're back to damned if you do and damned if you don't. Like, we're going to knock you for that throw, even though it was a completed pass and it was like
Like a perfect example, Michigan, Ohio State this week. I don't know if anybody watched it, but there was like a feathered throw past 2 defenders that JJ McCarthy put on a dot. Are you an Ohio State fan, Mike?
Yes, I am.
Suck it, go blue. Go blue. Suck it, go blue. I'm a Michigan fan, so that goes back to my grandfather's a Michigan alum, but no, but all being serious and stuff. But there was a throw that JJ McCarthy, and you know which one I'm talking about, where he floated it right over 25's ear for a touchdown to Cedric Wilson. I think it's the name. Wilson, whoever he is. I'm thinking maybe of a different receiver. But that's a perfect throw that could be considered a turnover-worthy play. All he's got to do is whip his head around, right? But it's a high-level, difficult throw that PFF is probably going to punish somebody for. It's just, they're so weird, man. I just don't know what they're cooking with, but the end product doesn't meet what the eye test tells you.
Yep. Agreed. All right, we are going to get into our chat pack, but first we got to pay the bills, and we're going to do this a little differently. We're going to do a live read. So shout out to my bookie. for sponsoring tonight's show. Guys, tomorrow night, there's one game left this week. We all need some extra holiday cash. If you missed on Thursday night, 3 games on Thursday, if you missed on all those 3, if you missed on Black Friday, if you missed on the slate of games today, do not worry. There is one more game tomorrow night, a Monday night matchup, a riveting matchup between the Chicago Bears and Minnesota Vikings, an NFC North clash. Justin Fields goes into Minnesota to try and take on Joshua Dobbs. That's a sentence I would not have thought I would be saying 2 months ago, but here we are. Joshua Dobbs, the Pastronaut, is playing extremely well, has the Vikings in playoff contention. Justin Fields is fighting to show the Bears upper management that he is the quarterback they should stick with. How's it going to play out? If you think you know ball, and maybe you do, maybe you don't, I don't know. I'm not one to say. If you think you know, go to mybookie.ag, sign up using our promo code HIVE. It's scrolling across the bottom of your screen, and place some bets. Whether you're just going to choose who's going to win, choose the money line. Whether you think the Bears or Vikings are going to cover, the line's 3 points, so everything's going to cover. Choose that. Who do you think is going to score a touchdown? Joshua Dobbs is going to get another rushing touchdown. Choose that. You could parlay all these together into insane odds and really get some holiday money. So again, mybookie.ag, use our promo code HIVE. Get that deposit bonus right now. Christmas is right around the corner. You can go home, say, honey, I got an extra $1,000 for Christmas gifts this week. So there you go, baby. mybookie.ag, promo code HIVE. Now let's get into this chat pack. This is a good one. And I think we did something similar to it, but not this one exactly. If you were given the opportunity to be an apprentice to any person, living or deceased, from whom would you want to learn?
I'm going to go with the Master Swordsmith Masamune. So one of my favorite shows is it's on the History Channel. It's like Forged in Fire or something like that, where it's like amateur blacksmiths go on the show and they try to create this blade based on a certain style or whatever that the judges want, and they test it on its lethality, on its durability, and things like that. And just all of the preparation that goes into that is absolutely insane. And then when you look at a historical figure like Masamune, he's a Japanese swordsmith, absolutely legendary for the quality and the almost artistry that went into his blades. Just to be in the same room as that guy, when somebody is so precision and so elite with what he's doing, I mean, you can't help but just sit back and look at it in awe. So that's kind of where I'm sitting at for that.
Damn. All right. Mike?
I don't have a specific name, but I would love to go and learn from like the Tibetan monks. Just their body control, their core control. You guys ever see the video of them like walking up the side of the mountains like how the goats do? And like the angle that they're on, they're just chilling, like carrying buckets of water and shit. Like I probably would want to go do something like that. I think that the peace and serenity, like I truly believe stuff like that starts like inside, like it's a mental thing, and I don't possess it enough. I don't have enough of it. Like, so I take my blood pressure every day. I told you guys about my weight gain and now weight loss and all that, and I'm still struggling with my blood pressure, right? So the other night, my wife is like oiling my scalp for me, and I'm laying down on her lap, and she's going through, and like I felt so peaceful. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna check my blood pressure right now, and it was the lowest it's been in the last 6 months. I don't know what it was about just the moment, just sitting there, laying there and feeling calm and relaxed. And I was like, man, if I could like take her with me to the doctor's office and just have her like rub my head while I was getting my blood pressure done, I wouldn't need any of the crap that they're prescribing for me, So I think I believe that the Tibetan monks have that kind of body control, So I don't know if it's chakra or what. I don't know what you chalk it up to, but I would definitely want to go and learn from those guys. I still want to watch football.
Yeah, you guys did a much more life-changing one than me. My mind went to Bill Walsh. I'm like, I'm going to go learn football from the great Bill Walsh. Teach me your ways, oh, Master Walsh. You guys went with life-changing shit. Master swordsmen, Tibetan monks. My mind immediately went to football. So I don't know, but it would be amazing. I chose Kyle at first, but then I thought he could kind of be a dick. So I'm like, maybe I'll go with the nicer Bill Walsh. Kyle seems like he'd be an asshole to teach somebody something that you'd be bugging.
And yet look at his coaching tree.
That's true. They're doing it very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, our man Christian Dyer says Steve Irwin for me. Bro, didn't he get like 86 by a Stingray? You sure you won't? I mean, can you really learn from a dude that got?
No Steve Irwin slander.
No, honestly though, Steve Irwin was great. I love that his kids are picking up in his like where he was and where he left off. And dude, that whole I used to watch that all the time. This
So
like
good.
Steve Irwin. It's so good. Crocodile Hunter was like such an amazing show. So that's a good one for sure.
John says Black Mamba, picking his brain on having
the Mamba mentality. Kobe.
Do you guys remember when he passed and everybody was like, I got Mamba mentality? Like, bro, you're hitting snooze on your alarm 12 times. Shut up. Like, you have Mamba mentality. You're not getting up at 4 a.m. You're not running. Like, shut up, man.
Oh, man. Hey, Kobe was the type of dude. Do you remember when like he was getting criticized or whatever, and they were like, Kobe, you need to pass the ball more. And then there was that like one, it was like a game, and it was like a third quarter where he didn't shoot at all. He just passed, like just to be a dick.
Yep.
That's the type of player Kobe. Man, I love Kobe. R.I.P. Kobe, man.
We have a question here from Big Daddy Niners. Question: do you think if the referees were fined for stupid mistakes, they would understand the game better, so they wouldn't be fined?
I think if they were full-time employees rather than part-time employees, I think that would definitely go a long way. It's interesting to me that the NFL makes some of the most money out of any sports. They make the most out of any sports league that's not like the Premier League or whatever, right? American sports, they make the most. The fact that they can't just hire these people to be full-time 365 days a year, right? When it's not NFL season, they should be attending camps, symposiums, rule meetings, blah, blah, blah. I think it would go a long way towards cleaning some of that stuff up. And public perception in all four major sports in the United States has never been lower in terms of refereeing and umpiring. They got to do something because every week, I mean, you're never going to get rid of all the people that are like, oh man, the refs took it from us. But each and every week there's an egregious call. I saw a stat for baseball, and I know this is a little bit different, but it was like 2023 was MLB umpires' most accurate year ever. They still missed 23,000 calls.
Damn.
You know, it's that, and it's not going to change, guys. Like with the advancement in
technology, but it could get better, right?
It could get better. You would think that with the advancement in technology, officiating would get better, but I also think that it's kind of, you know, it's two-sided. So they get a little bit more relaxed. I think officials just want there to be and challenge any call rule. So if I get it wrong, they can throw the flag, and then we can just make sure that we make the right call. You know, I think, you know. So I watched the play, and I was hoping that it was ruled a turnover, because they're automatically reviewed. Yes. And I feel like if it's a questionable call, you should just immediately do that. So that way you just take away any and every mistake, because otherwise you can't even challenge it, you know? So it's like, why aren't they doing that? So here I am saying that they're becoming more dependent on technology, but it's when's the last time you memorized someone's phone number, right? Like, because we have cell phones now, I know the numbers that I knew when I was 8 years old, and then that's it. I don't know the last time I memorized somebody's number. And there's people that I call every single day, but I just go to a name and I hit call. And if that number came up on a phone that I didn't recognize, like it wasn't my personal phone, I wouldn't know who that person was. I would be like, yeah, I'm not answering this. It's an unknown caller. And it's someone that I speak to on a daily basis, right? The same thing is happening with officials. Like they're so dependent on the technology and, oh, is New York going to call us and say, hey, that's a bad thing? I do think that if they got fined, they would make better calls and better decisions. I do think that's the thing.
Yeah. I think, and I've said this before, some level of accountability is needed. And I think it could start with having 3 press conferences after every game: home team, away team, and officials. And maybe the NFL has a limit on, you know, what questions you can ask or how many questions you can ask, but it would just be nice to have the officials go up and explain their logic behind certain calls, why they felt something was, you know, an incomplete pass versus a complete pass, or a fumble versus not. You know, like I think that would be a little more open. I think the fact that it's all handled kind of like behind closed doors gives fans like more reason to believe that there's this conspiracy to screw one team over another, help one team over another. It needs to be brought into the daylight, and that would help a lot.
I agree with you. Mike, to your point about being more reliant on technology, I think that the happy medium between what I'm saying and what you're saying would be, those situations where we saw earlier in the 49ers game too, where they blew a play dead, right? I think if those officials are full-time and you hammer into them, hey, look, in these specific situations, it might not necessarily be this is the letter of the rule, but situationally, hey, beware of this. Like, if you guys are looking to rely on technology, this is what you have to do to be able to review this play. So this is how you're supposed to call it, I think that would go a long way towards helping it too, because if you want the review, that's fine. I don't mind that, but you need to let them know, like, this is where you can hold the whistle and technology will kind of take care of the call for you.
There we go. Sidebar really quick. I think Zay Flowers just had one of the coolest touchdown celebrations I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah, the soccer one?
Yeah, that was pretty dope.
Yeah.
You talked about the Premier League, and then I saw him do that. I was like, oh, that was pretty dope. And the guy, like that, he fully committed. I don't know who the lineman was, but he dove the opposite direction, like this how they do. Oh, man, that was great. That was
great. I think it was like it might have been a Cristiano Ronaldo celebration. But shout outs, by the way, to Brandon Staley and the Chargers, who find another way to be absolutely dog shit. So hopefully the Chargers figure that out and fire Brandon Staley because he stinks.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for this show. We will be live later in the week previewing the 49ers versus Eagles game. It is here, baby. Rematch of the NFC Championship game. Let's hope everybody's healthy on both sides. I don't want any excuses coming from either fandom. So we'll be live. Follow us on X. Our handles are on the screen so you do not miss a thing. Make sure you follow the podcast as well at RGS Pod. Mike, I'm sure the folks know where to find you, but let them know just in case they don't.
Yeah, guys, give us a follow over on our Patreon page. It's right there at the bottom of the screen, patreon.com/NB9ERS. And then we are also on YouTube as Nothing But Niners. You guys see it on the Instagram, everywhere else. You guys search for us. We'll pop up there.
All right. Thanks for joining us, Mike. As always, Matt, carry us out.
Pleasure.
Absolutely. Mike, Zach, great job tonight. Loved having this show. Loved having everybody here. Couple days after Thanksgiving. Hope everybody's holiday was amazing. Now it's on to probably the matchup of the year for the 49ers. So everybody take a deep breath, buckle your safety belts. It's going to be a wild ride. We're going to bring you that preview show later in the week, as Zach mentioned. So for Zach, for Mike, for myself, thank you as always. We love having you here. And until next time, go Niners.